Back to Miller. Oh my goodness.
Herbert, sidearm sling, and it's a touchdown.
Tyrese Maxey.
Oh, good spin move by Filipowski for the news. Give him 9.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Beef Upfront podcast here on Pick Swap Media. This is your host, Ryan Coyle. As always, back today, concluding the NFC East portion of our NFL preview series, where we'll be going through each and every team, each and every division, breaking down team by team, episode by episode. Today, we are in the fourth place spot in the NFC East. We had the Philadelphia Eagles finishing in first, getting the number one overall seed in the NFC. The Dallas Cowboys finishing in second, getting the fifth seed with a 10-7 record. The Eagles with a 13-4 record. And the New York Giants in third at 6-11, missing the playoffs. Today, to wrap up the division, obviously we will have the Washington Commanders, who I have going 3-14, only 1-5 in the division, and that's 15th in the NFC, so the second worst team in the NFC this season. And after going through their entire roster as well as the schedule, I think I might be a little too low on them. I think this is more of a 6 or 7 win team, but for schedule's sake, going through it, I found 3 wins there on the schedule. And this is a team that last year, they went 8-1. That was last in the NFCs last year, which, 2 years ago, that would have either won the division or been right up there, like tied for second in the really few down years that the division had. Last year, the NFC's got 3 playoff teams out of it. So 8-1 was for last place last year, and I think that they continue with that this year. But we do have a new era of football down in Washington and D.C., new ownership coming in with Josh Harris, primary owner now. Daniel Snyder selling the team. It's finally kind of a breath of fresh air. But I do feel like if this is a team that does wind up getting this 3-14 record, we could see after this season just a complete, cleaning of the house, especially with a whole new ownership group coming in. You could have a whole new coach back and just really have a new entire era of Washington football down there. They said they might even change the name from the Commanders again. So I think this is going to be a season to forget in Washington. Like I said at the beginning, it wouldn't surprise me to maybe see them creep up around 6 or 7 wins, but I do not think this is a playoff team. And we'll get started with the main reason why. It's because of who's leading the offense with Sam Howell out of North Carolina last year. This is a quarterback that, 2 years ago, him and Spencer Rattler were really looked at as the number 1 and 2 guys that would have been like quarterbacks in the draft. Spencer Rattler's still in school. Sam Howell, obviously with Washington now here. And I think he's most likely going to be given the chance to prove that he's a franchise guy. But like I said, if this is a team that goes 3-14, 15th in the NFC, they're going to be picking in the top 5, maybe even the top 2 or number 1 overall pick potentially. They'll definitely be in the market for one of those top-tier quarterbacks in Caleb Williams or Drake May. So this season could be all about just seeing what you kind of have on the roster in place. There already is a pretty decent core, but I think this team is missing some elite players to really help take them over the top. But Sam Howell's opportunity to prove that he's the guy and can be the guy going forward in Washington. If he's able to lead this team to the playoffs, I think he'll certainly earn himself another year, and Ron Rivera another year as well as the head coach. But Jacoby Brissett is in there as the backup quarterback. We've seen him be a really solid backup player in the league, but he's really just a spot starter. If you're looking to potentially save your job in your Ron Rivera and you want to middle to like a 500 record and maybe try and sneak in to the playoffs via the wild card, maybe you turn to Jacoby Brissett if Sam Howell starts out slow. But what Jacoby Brissett is at the end of the day. He's going to be like a 500 to a little bit below 500 quarterback with extended starts. So I'm kind of excited to see Sam Howell unleashed a little bit more. I was a little bit higher on him coming out of the draft. He showed some flashes at times last year, but he reminds me kind of a bit of a Baker Mayfield type player. He's just like a shorter, stockier quarterback, but he does have a really good arm, a rocket arm on him. And if he does, like I said, play well this year, even if he plays serviceable and the team only winds up winning 5 or 6 games or something like that, he could play himself into being just like a legit backup quarterback for the next decade plus. And that's not a bad avenue to go down either for a guy who I believe was a former fourth round pick. So I think, though, when you look at Sam Howell, you're going to have below average quarterback play, and then I think the rest of your offense is going to struggle from there if he's not able to really elevate his game and help get the guys around him better as well. But Terry McLaurin at receiver, he's found ways to produce each and every year in the league with poor quarterback play. Terry McLaurin has gone over 900 yards in his 4 seasons in the NFL, and he's gone over 1,000 in 3 out of those 4 seasons. So this is as solid as a receiver as is in the league, and he should find his way to another productive season, probably in that 900 to 1,000 yard range. Jahan Dotson looked very promising at times last year in his rookie season out of Penn State. And Curtis Samuel was a pretty good free agent pickup as well as like that do-it-all gadget type receiver. So Sam Howell does have a pretty decent trio to work with. Let's see if Jahan Dotson can take another leap. And if Curtis Samuel can kind of emulate some of the production he had at times last year, then maybe we'll be looking at a different possible team. But I'm not buying into a team where the quarterback situation is such an unknown. And I think that's what it is with Washington right now. But I do like this group of pass catchers, and I think if Sam Howell is able to take care of the ball, a little worried about his turnovers, if he's able to get it into his playmakers' hands effectively, this team, as I said, could be closer to like a 6-7 win, potentially even replicate last year's 8 wins as well. Logan Thomas at the tight end spot has been a pretty solid tight end in his own regard when healthy, but that has been rare the past few years since he got that contract extension from Washington. He's really struggled to stay on the field and stay healthy. And I do like the running back duo, though, for this team of Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson. It's a really nice 1-2 kind of punch, a thunder and lightning combo with Brian Robinson as that downhill runner, able to really punish defenders, a good red zone back, and then Antonio Gibson's a really good receiving back, and he can kind of do a little bit everything out of the backfield. So it's a nice 1-2 punch, but I haven't really raved or gone on a lot about any of these guys. Terry McLaurin is a really good player, solid player, but I don't think there's an elite piece on this offense, and that really worries me in a league that you need those top-tier guys to kind of take you over the next level, especially if you don't have an elite-level quarterback. So we'll see if one of those guys can maybe take that leap, but not having much faith in that group as an entire unit this year. I am worried about this offensive line, all serviceable guys, but another position group on this team where there's no difference makers or tone centers. I think you can do a lot worse in this group, but this is across the board. Charles Leno, Paul at guard, Chris Gates at center, Sam Cosmi at guard, Andrew Wiley at right tackle. They're all just kind of average to middle of the pack players at their position. So this is an offense that I'm not that high on, but if Sam Howell is able to come out and impress, he does have some serviceable guys. He's going to have to help lift their game though. Then you go to the defense, certainly the strong suit of this team. And if Washington has done one thing well over the last decade under Daniel Snyder, it has been drafting and developing defensive linemen. Montez Sweat, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, and Chase Young makes up one of the best defensive line, if not the best entire front four in the NFL. And this is a really young group as well, all homegrown players. So this is the strong suit of this Washington Commanders team. They are counting on Chase Young, though, to get back to the form we saw him in his rookie year, kind of emerge as one of the better pass rushers in the league. He kind of has been battling injuries, had some ACLs, and he was talked about in the same breath as a Joey Bosa, a Nick Bosa, a Myles Garrett when he was coming out. We haven't seen that quite yet. This is a big year for him to get back on track because if he has a big year this year, he's going to get a big-time contract extension, whether it's from Washington or another team. But when you go back to Sam Howell, talking about the offense real quick, if he's able to take care of the ball and this defensive line is able to stay healthy, they're going to keep them in games and help the defense create turnovers just because they're so dynamic up front. I'm just worried about Howell's ability to take care of the football at the NFL level and potentially hurting this defense and putting them in poor spots. But once you get past that front four of Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Deron Payne, and Jonathan Allen, the rotation on the defensive line is a bit worrisome. So keeping those guys healthy is the main key, I think, for the season for this Washington football team. Jamin Davis at linebacker, a former first-round pick out of Kentucky. I think they're counting on him to take another leap. He had 104 tackles last year, but with that D-line in front of him, if all those guys are healthy, he should be one of the top guys in the league when it comes to tackles, just cleaning up the trash, everything kind of just being funneled his way. So look for him to have another big-time leap in his third year. And then when you look at the secondary, headlined by Kendall Fuller at corner, as well as rookie cornerback Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State. He was known as probably the best ball-hawking defensive back in this draft class. So Kendall Fuller, a really solid corner on one end, and Forbes, a guy that might get caught or beat on a couple double moves, but he can turn the football over. And when you got a really strong defensive line like that and a guy with a nose for the ball in Forbes in the defensive backfield, there could be some more turnovers coming this Washington defense way. So look for Emmanuel Forbes to have some potential big plays as a rookie. And then Carmen Curl and Derek Forrest, I think one of the weaker safety duos in the league, certainly an area that could be improved. But as I've touched on, if that front four stays healthy, they're going to be elite and one of the best groups in the league. And then you bring that ball hawk tendency in with Emmanuel Forbes out of the draft. This could be one of the better defensive groups in the league again. This under Ron Rivera, they're going to be really solid on that end. Just got to stay healthy and kind of hope the offense isn't putting them in bad spots with the turnovers. Coach grade, I'm going to give Ron Rivera a B-. A really solid coach. He had that one really good 15-1 year in Carolina, a couple other playoff appearances, but nothing really elite. The defense always going to be good, but I think he, at times, it's kind of gotten a long leash, I think, that really bought some time with that Carolina deal and then made the playoffs a couple years ago in Washington. But this is a coach that it's a make or break year for him. B- is kind of my average mark for the coaches when I grade them around the league. This is a make or break year, as we touched on in the beginning, with new ownership coming in, last place finish in the division last year. We could be looking at a complete overhaul in the front office and a quarterback for this Washington team if things don't go well this year. So Ron Rivera, a big year for him. My breakout player this year for the Washington Commanders, I'm going to go with second-year wide receiver Jahan Dotson. Only played in 12 games last year in his rookie season, but he still was able to put up 35 catches, 523 yards, and 7 touchdowns. So he had a touchdown every 5 catches, a guy that really had a nose for the end zone, and he was on pace for 50 catches, 740 yards in his rookie season, and his touchdowns were obviously, a little bit inflated by that one touchdown for every 5 catch ratio. So he was on pace if he played 16 games for, I think, like 19 touchdowns or something around there. But this is a receiver I think that could really turn those year one numbers into a really productive year two. And those numbers could be making some real noise next to a guy that, as we talked about earlier as well, and Terry McLaurin, that's a really solid overall player. So Jahan Dotson, I'm looking for him to take that year two leap and kind of emerge as that secondary piece in this offense for Sam Howell next to Terry McLaurin. And the games to watch for this Washington team, I'm going to go week 1 versus the Cardinals. Might not be watching it for the right reasons, but I do think a little teaser, the Cardinals are going to be the worst team in the NFL this year, at least the NFC. And I have Washington as my second least or second worst record in the NFC. So that could be a game where these teams are battling out for the number 1 pick. I forget what the actual tiebreaker is, but if it comes down to head-to-head and it's those two up there, this game could ultimately decide that. So 2 of the poor teams in the league, but also a chance for, I think, these 2 teams to get a potential win early in the season. And then week 12 at the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, just a division rivalry game on Thanksgiving, that 4:30 slot each and every year that the Cowboys get. All eyes will be on that game, so that's certainly one to watch. But thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this edition of the Beef Up Front podcast. Wrapping up the NFC East. In this one, we will be heading to the NFC North next, where I have not the Detroit Lions, I believe, winning the NFC North. Excuse me, I do have the Detroit Lions winning the NFC North, but it will be a close race. The Lions have been one of the more hyped-up teams throughout the offseason. I don't think it's a given that they're going to win the division, and I'll break down that in our next episode. But I think the NFC North is going to be one of the more competitive divisions, but one of the more overall weak divisions in the NFL this year. So make sure to tune into next episode, when we'll be breaking down the Detroit Lions, as I have them as my first place team in the NFC North. But go check out all the entire NFC episodes with the Giants, the Cowboys, and the Eagles. As always, everyone, thank you everyone for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and we'll talk soon.